This is the 3D-Simgear RaceDash Pro, a 4.3-inch V-Core LCD display surrounded by 21 ludicrously bright RGB LED lights. In order to make the display easy to be attached to your wheelbase, it ships with two mounting brackets, one that's compatible with VRS and SimHub wheels, the other being compatible with Fantastic wheelbases, with the design of the mounts allowing you to move the screen up and down on your wheelbase to get it in that ideal position for your eyeballs to stare at. The bulk of the construction of the RaceDash Pro is 3D printed, however it's wearing a lot of makeup on its face with a 2mm carbon front, which polishes things off nicely when looking at it whilst racing. The brackets themselves as well are also machined carbon fibre. As you know, it's important to keep the weight down when placing items on a 15,000-ton T-slot sim rig. In terms of installation before use, this does of course require SimHub and also the downloading of the drivers for this device from the 3D-Simgear website. You can use SimHub for free, but it's well worth grabbing a license and you can pay whatever you want for it because the guys at SimHub are crazy. It's also worth saying that SimHub is fantastic for doing things like controlling tactile transducers. Check out my video on that if you haven't, and also you can use SimHub to send displays on your existing screen or even mobile phones if you wanted to test it before getting one of these dedicated dash displays. Now it's worth keeping in mind that the 3D-Simgear RaceDash Pro is effectively two separate devices as far as SimHub is concerned, one being the touchscreen LCD display and the other being the LED lights. So you do have to configure both of them in separate locations in the SimHub software. I'd say for people that have never used SimHub before, the installation of this device could be a little bit intimidating, or it certainly is a tiny bit of a fiddle, but there are loads of YouTube videos out there explaining SimHub, and the guys at 3D-Simgear will help you out if you get stuck. Not complicated, but not totally brain dead simple either to get going. It's also worth saying that the RaceDash Pro uses a single USB-C cable to both send the data and the power for the screen and the LED lights. As a result, you might need to be plugging it into a powered USB hub if your USB ports on your computer don't have enough juice. I plugged mine into the most beautiful USB hub known to man, and as a result haven't had any issues. I will say the USB port being on the bottom of the device means I can't quite route the cable away how I want to, but that does mean that you can mount the display flush against something should you want to, so it swings and roundabouts, but I would like it at the back. Now I've had the RaceDash Pro on my main sim rig for the better part of a month, and I was also recently unlucky enough to take part in iRacing's 24 Hours of Daytona, giving the dash display 24 hours of continuous sim racing taken too seriously abuse. And after all that usage, I can say for sure that LED lights, particularly bright LED lights, are far more useful at stopping you from doing moronic things than I originally thought they would be. But before I go more in depth into that, I want to talk about the LCD display on it. The 4.3-inch display shows information clearly, brightly, and with a frame rate of 60 Hz, which is quite impressive as that's all going through that single USB cable. Unfortunately, I would say in terms of design and also legibility, the display is a little on the small side. This isn't a problem with some dashes, but especially the dashes that have multiple options activated through the touchscreen, you'll find it's very hard to see lap timing data or individual lap breakdown data just due to the screen being small. I'd also say as well, visually with the design, the screen doesn't quite go far enough to the edges. It's as if this device should have had a larger screen in it, and then it would proportionally look a lot more balanced and also a lot more sophisticated in design. Functionally though, the screen works like a screen. It displays the information, it does what you'd expect. A nice feature is you can have it also display CPU, memory, PC statistics when you're not sim racing. I wonder if LCDs will ever catch on as a technology for displaying things. Now, onto the glorious LED lights, and this is where the Dash really shines. I was really surprised by how much of an effect having bright LEDs had on my driving experience. I am very simple-minded and apparently also related to moths, but the simple fact is, having very bright lights for you're running out of fuel, or this is the point when you need to shift, or red flashing lights on the left for a car on the left, or red flashing lights for a car on the right, is really hard to accidentally ignore, and also such that you don't have to really be looking at it to see what's going on in your periphery with the lights burning a hole in your retina. Even in this video, you can see that the lights are relatively much brighter than the Fanatec F1 wheel rim lights, and this is with the lights on a very low setting. And when using my other equipment that doesn't have these bright LED lights, I do genuinely miss it. So the LEDs get a good solid 7 from me. An additional bonus of having these LEDs on this display is that if you've got a flag box of some variety, maybe even from the same company, the 3D-Simgear flag box, you can have that flag box display the flag specifically and then focus on the LEDs on the dash displaying RPM and maybe like emergency stuff, or vice versa. This frees you up to have even more information projected to your eyeballs with super bright LEDs, which can only ever be a good thing. The only real fault of them is that you have to have them on quite bright to get the full colour palette out of the LEDs. On lower brightness it still functions perfectly fine, you just won't get the exact colour you're expecting from the software. Ultimately, there are a lot of dash options on the market these days, many of which have very similar features and functionality. Where the 3D-Simgear RaceDash Pro fits in is that it's priced quite aggressively, especially for a device that's manufactured and shipped from the European Union. And especially for a dash display that has the carbon fibre finishing for the front plates and the mounting plates, along with the touchscreen and the addition of the LED lights. Though it does have the functionality there, with its cheaper price, you can't really get away from the fact that it doesn't look quite as polished as the more expensive display dashboards on the market. Ultimately, it's going to come down to your personal preferences. Do you like the shape of the dash? Do you like the carbon finish? If you do, this could be really quite a good affordable option. If you don't, then you might want to spend a little bit more money or risk taking a punt on something shipped from 1,000 miles away. A word of warning, never use a dash with LED lights, because if you do and you get used to it, you're probably going to find it hard to go back to not using it. And as Shakespeare famously once said, life is but an RGB LED light, indicating that you've misshifted and disappointed not only yourself, but everyone around you.
There's a link to the screen under the video. Click on that link, be blinded by light. Also subscribe, then feel regret. You've just confirmed you're a loser, sim racing loser, no return. Yes, you can't afford real race cars, and you've spent too much money on a completely pointless hobby. Goodbye, goodbye everybody.